Hi, I'm Ryan McFarland with Strider Sports International. Today we're going to install a brake kit on an ST2 Strider Prebike. We have a couple different versions of the Strider, and you need to check your serial number to make sure you've got the version that works with your brake kit. Serial number is stamped right onto the front of the bike, right in the head tube, right below the logo. You'll see a number that starts with a couple initials actually. So we're looking for bikes that have the JY initials at the start of that serial number. That means you have an ST2 bike. If they start with a UV, then you have an ST1 bike and you'll need a different brake kit. This is an ST2 bike, starts with JY. The brake kit will come with an instruction sheet. First step, it says start here, is to determine the spacing of your brake boss. We'll get into that in just a minute. But be sure and start with that part of the manual. The next thing is you have the brake lever itself. And then you have two different length springs. And one spring goes on one dimensioned brake boss and the other will apply to the other one. You also have a bolt with a flat washer. Go ahead and put one flat washer on that bolt right now. And then you'll have a second flat washer and a nylock nut to go on afterwards. So let's start with getting this first measurement that I referenced. We have two different spacings between the footrest and the brake boss, and you need to determine that before we go any further. So grab a ruler and in inches just measure from the bottom of the footrest down to the center line of that brake boss, the center line of that tube. You're going to either have a measurement that's a little under a half an inch, about 9.5 millimeters, or a little over a half an inch, about 14 millimeters. So depending on which one you measure, it'll determine which spring you use and which mounting hole in the brake you use. This bike measures just over a half an inch. So that means we're going to use the longer spring. So we'll set this one aside. So just keep in mind, the larger measurement uses the longer spring. And then we'll use the lower hole in the brake lever. So we're going to just kind of dry fit this first without the spring to make sure it all works. So with the bike upside down, the lower hole is going to actually be the one on top. So we're going to dry fit this in here. And you can see we've got good clearance here. The wheel spins, the brake runs right up against it. I'll just show you the difference. If we choose the wrong hole, we've got way too much movement and the child would have to push the brake lever a long ways for this brake to activate. So choose the best hole, make note of which one it is, and then we'll get the spring next. The spring has a rounded edge, and that rounded edge slides in towards the seat tube. So we're going to drop that in. It'll hook right, sit basically right behind that brake boss. Our brake lever is going to push down right on that spring surface. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. So you want to grab the bolt with one washer installed, put the palm of your hand on the brake here, and then you're just going to push that down until you line up that first hole. Get the bolt started. And then keep pressure on it so it doesn't spring loose. Line the hole up on the other side, and then as soon as it's lined up, push the bolt on through. Okay, so this one's in. We've got a good feel to the lever. It springs back right into position. All right, there's a bottom view of that. Now what we have to do is install this other flat washer and the other nylock nut. And you'll need two 10mm wrenches. or as I'm demonstrating, you can also use the old crescent wrench. This isn't something that has to be real tight, so we're just going to hold that, tighten the nut, and this is a locking nut, so it doesn't have to be tight, it just needs to go onto the threads a little ways. And as soon as the bolt's poking through the nylon lock, it's good to go. It doesn't have to be tight, it's just needing to keep it located on the brake boss. You'll make sure that it still moves freely. If you get that too tight, it'll bind on the frame and then the brake lever won't move. So just snug that up so it stays in place. You're all set. All right, enjoy.